We are going to be focusing on 3 different types of graphs. This first one is going to be circles that we're working on first. Nice and easy. And how you know these are circles when it's talking about polar chords is because it has one number in front and then sine or cosine. So like these are different because you're adding another number to it, but if it's just a number, then cosine or sine, it's going to be a circle. So the first thing we're going to have to do is find the radius because the diameter is the number in front. So our diameter is 4. That means our radius is what? 2. Very good. Because it's half the diameter. All right, think about the unit circle. Our sine is our what value? X or Y? Y value. Very good. So because this is our Y value, because it's sine, it's going to be symmetrical. Symmetry around the y-axis. Logan, here you go. You just sit right over. Alright, so all you have to do from here, the center, or excuse me, 1 point is always going to be at 0, 0. I'm sorry. This one? Yes. Oh, there we go. Alright, and then from here we can draw our diameter. It's positive, so it's going to be going up the positive y-axis. So you just draw a point at 4. And then our center is going to be at our radius, which is 2. And again, it's positive and it's sine, so it's going to be positive y-axis right here. Then you just draw your circle. Maybe I should draw it darker. So 2 things to check. The number in front is our what? What's the number in front? Diameter. And then sine tells us it's going to be on what axis? Y-axis. So cosine is going to be on what? X-axis. Very good. So on this one, our diameter for number 2 is what? Very good. What's our radius then? Good, but negative 1.5. And then cosine tells us it's going to be symmetrical across which axis? X-axis. Very good. So we can go ahead and draw a point on negative 3. And again, because it's negative, it's going to be on that direction on our x-axis. We can draw a point 1.5 away from the center. So it's going to be 1.5 this way, 1.5, 1.5 this way, 1.5. And I'm not concerned with how tall it goes on each side, just that you have the center right here at negative 3 and then 1.5 away from each one.
Draw the circles?
Do you have to draw it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Draw it?
Yes. Because we're getting into some that's going to be like an inner loop and a dimple, and I need to know that this one's a circle. All right, one more together. Yes.
So why would you negative 4?
Say that again.
Make a circle and negative 4. Why would you do
At negative 4.
that?
That's at negative 4.5. So let me talk about this again. You draw a dot at negative 3 right here, and then this tells you how far away to go from it. Sorry, it's kind of blurry. So you go over 1.5 on each side. So on this one, this is where our center is going to be. That's our diameter. And then our radius is going to be half of that, which is negative 2.5. This is going to be on our x or y axis. Very good. So I draw a point at negative 5 because it's negative on my y-axis. And then you go 2.5 up, so 1, 2.5. 2.5 down, which is going to run off, but that's fine. It's going to be 2.5 down. And you're going to do some of these on your own on this homework sheet that I'm going to give you after class. Alright, those are circles, and again, the way you know it's a circle is because there's a number and then the trig function. Nothing's being added or subtracted.
Do you know how to fix that?
No. I just hit one of those buttons when it starts doing that.
Maybe that stopped. Okay.
Okay. All right, the next ones we're going to talk about are limicins. Fancy word. And limicins occur when we have a number plus a number, cosine, or sine. And there's 3 different types of limicins, or actually they're just like look different. But when A is less than B, and that means this first number is going to be less than this second number that occurs, it's going to make an inner loop. Inner loop. And there's a bunch of different ways you can graph these. Some people make a table, but I feel like the best way is just thinking about our axes right here and what is cosine on each axis. Now cosine is our x or y value. Yes. So we know that if I draw a dot on this axis, say if I draw a dot here, cosine of 0 is going to be 1 because you go 1 over on your x-axis, just like the unit circle. At 90 degrees, that's our x value. Our x value is not doing anything, so cosine of 90 is what? Very good. We know cosine of 180 is -1, and we know cosine of 270 is what? 0. Very good. So all we have to do from here is plug in these values to the original. So here's what I mean. Cosine of 0 is what? 1. So 1 plus 2, because 2 times 1 will be 2. 1 plus 2 is what?
It's like really blurry.
I'm sorry. Okay, let me talk about this again. So cosine of 0, when I plug it in, that'll be 1, right? 2 times 1 will be what? Plus 1? Very good. So I can draw a dot at 3 right here. And let me do that in a different color. Maybe that'll help. Alright, when I plug in cosine of 90 right here, I'm sorry. My room is flooded, by the way, that's why we're in here. A pipe busted in my ceiling, and there's just water everywhere. My ceiling busted, and it's just on the floor. So we might be in here like today and tomorrow. Okay, back to this. Alright, so cosine of 180, when we plug that in, will give us 0. So 1 plus 2 times 0 will just give us what? 0 right here. Then we add the 1, that'll give us what? Yes, so we draw a point at 1. Alright, when I plug in -1 for cosine theta, what's 2 times -1? Plus 1. Alright, remember when we graph polar coordinates, if it's negative, the y value is negative, we go in the opposite direction of that angle. Y'all remember that from the quiz? Some of y'all do, some of y'all didn't get it. So if we are graphing like 180 degrees and then -1, we're going to go 1 away from that angle. Y'all remember? So we got -1 by plugging this in, so that value is going to be 1 away from 180. Does that make sense? I'm going to say it again. When we plug in -1 for cosine right here, we would get 1 plus 2 times -1. That's going to give us 1 minus 2, which is -1, correct? So that's for this value, this angle. So if it's a negative value, we go away from that angle. Alright, moving on to this one. When we plug in 0 for cosine, that's going to be 1 plus 2 times 0. That's just going to be what? 1. Very good. So anytime that A is less than B, and again that's 1, this first number is less than this number, it's going to look like this, your points are. And it's going to create an inner loop, so you start at the tallest point and graph just like that. You can see it makes an inner loop on the inside. Kind of like a heart. Let's do the next one together, and then I'm going to let you try the last one on your own. What's different about this one, number 5 and number 4? Sine instead of cosine. But we know the sine values on the quadrants as well. Sine's talking about x or y. Yes, so on these two, our x-axes, these will both be what for sine? 0. Good. And then right here, we're talking about y values. This is in the positive direction, so it's going to be 1. This one's going to be -1. Alright, Brandon. When I plug in 0 for sine up here, we'll get 1 plus 3 times 0. That's going to give us what? Say it again. Did I lose you? You with me? No? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you were asking me.
Yeah, I was like, what are you looking at? Okay, let me ask you again. When I plug in 0 for sine right here, I'll get 1 plus 3 times 0. That's going to give us what? Good. Okay. All right, Darian, when I plug in this value for sine, it's going to give me 1 plus 3 times 1. That's going to give me what? And when I plug in 1 for sine, it's going to give me 1 plus 3 times 1. Thank you. All right, Kayla, what about when I plug in 0? I'll get what? 0 right here. But I'll get what now? Yes. And it's positive, so it's still going this direction. And Kelsey, when I plug in -1, I'll get 1 plus 3 times -1. That'll give me what? Very good. So instead of going towards this angle, I have to go what? 2 in the opposite. Good. Away from it. And now you start at the tallest point and draw your inner loop, and we're done. So what do you notice about cosine and sine? Same thing here. Cosine is going to be symmetrical across the x-axis because it's talking about x values. Sine is going to be symmetrical across your y-axis because it's y values. So before you do this one on your own, tell me what my axes values are for cosine. This one's going to be what? Go ahead. Good. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Number 6. Let me know if you need some help. Yeah, that's right. Anybody want more time? All right, Solomon, coming at you. When I plug in 1, hold on. There we go. When I plug in 1 right here, I'll get 1 minus 4, which is what? Does everybody understand what you're plugging these numbers in for? Like you are replacing cosine theta with these numbers. Okay, so when I plug this in, I'll get 1 minus 4 times 1. So that'll give me what? -3. So instead of going 3 towards it, because it's negative, we go what? 3 away. I'm going to write that down just in case people are still confused about that. It'll clear up in a second. So again, you are plugging these in for cosine theta. So it's 1 minus 4 times 1. That's what you're plugging in for. So 1 minus 4 is going to be that -3. And if it's negative, you go away from that value. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. There's just nothing I can do. So this next one, we plug in 0 for cosine theta, so 1 minus 4 times 0. That's going to give us what? 1. And it's positive, so it's going to go towards that number that we just plugged in.
Okay.
The value of the end is positive?
The value of what now?
At the end is positive?
Yes. If the value at the end is positive, it goes 1 towards that number,
Okay.
that angle. Okay. I'm going to try to not put my hands out there. Okay. When we plug in negative 1 right here, we'll get 1 minus 4 times negative 1. That's going to give us what here? 1 plus 4, which is what? 5. Very good. Let me just try something. Alright, and this is the number we just plugged in, right? So we go 5 towards it. That's going to be right here. So whatever number you plug in, if it's positive, it's going towards that. If it's negative, you go in the opposite direction. So we'll have a point right here at 5. Yeah, that's better. Alright, last one, when we plug 0 in, 1 minus 4 times 0 will give us what? 1. Very good. Towards that number. So that'll be right here. So you start by drawing at the tallest point, inner loop right here. Did anybody get this one on their own? No. 2. Okay. That's why we're going to practice some more. Alright, that is a limicon inner loop. And again, it's because this number is smaller than that number. So now we're going to look at when the numbers are the same. For example, 2 and 2. This type of limicon is called a dimple. It's not called a dimple. That's the shape it's going to make, is a dimple. Or like a peach, or like a bud. You'll see. We started off the same way. We're dealing with cosine. So what is cosine of 0? 1, this one's going to be, and 0. And same thing, we keep on plugging them in. So I'm going to write that in a different color over here. What I mean by plugging it in, we're going to replace this with 1. So when we do that, we'll get 2 plus 2 times 1. That's going to give us what? Good. And we're going to go towards that number that we just plugged in. It's going to be right here. Alright, Kaya, this next one, if I plug in 0 for cosine, this is how it'll look, and it'll give me what value? 2. Very good. Towards that. Alright, Darian, when I plug in a negative 1, it's going to give me 2 plus this, which is going to give me what? What's 2 times negative 1? Good. So that's going to be at the center. And Amber, if I plug in 0, that's going to be the same thing as up here, correct? It's going to give me what value? Very good. 2 towards it. So we still start at the tallest point right here when we draw these. And it's going to go a little bit in. That's the dimple I'm talking about in the middle. Kind of looks like a peach or a butt. Ugly butt. And that's when these two numbers are the same. That's always the shape you'll get. Questions on that one? Let's do one more together, then you're going to do 9 on your own. Alright, cosine of 0 is going to be what? And then, good. And then 0. Alright, Solomon, when I plug in 1, again, I'm replacing it with cosine, so it'll be 3 minus 3 times 1. That's going to give me what? Very good. Colby, when I plug in 0 for cosine, I'll get 3 minus 3 times 0. That's going to give me, very good, towards it. Hey. Camden, when I plug in negative 1, I'm going to get what? Very good, because this would make a positive 3, so it's 6 towards that number. And Antonio, when I plug in 0, it'll be the same as this one, so I'll have a value of what right here? 0 right here, but what's 3 minus 0? Yes, so it'll be 3 towards this one. Start at the tallest point and draw your dimple. Now, before you start on number 9, don't forget that these values won't be the same because this is what? 9. So what are my values before you get started? Good. And good. Go ahead and do 9 on your own. Alright, anybody need more time? Alright, Alyssa, when I plug in 0, you should get what? Very good. When you plug in 1, Katie, you should get what? Very good. Cade, when you plug in 0, you should get
2.
very good, and it's 2 towards that because that's what we plugged in. Kelsey, what'd you get when you plugged in -1?
4.
Positive 4?
Yes.
Good, so it's going to go 4 towards that number that we plugged in. So this is what it should look like. Are y'all feeling more comfortable with these a little bit? No. Is it the part where like this -4 is throwing you off?
Just the graph.
I can get the numbers and I won't plot it.
You don't plot them right? So the easiest way I can tell you is whatever number you plug in, if it's positive, you go towards that number. If it's negative, the opposite direction. Like in this one, you plugged it in, got +4, right? So you're going 4 towards that number.
It made sense when I did the chart, but it didn't come out right when I did it with the sign. When I did it with the cosine, it came out positive.
Gotcha. You can make a chart. That's fine. Some people do that, like that better. All right, flip it over. This is the last type of limicon. And this one is the same thing. It's a dimple, but it's sometimes a little bigger. And that's because this number is bigger than this number. So when A is bigger than B, it's still a dimple, just a little bit bigger. It just looks a little different. We still set it up the same way. So my sign values are what? Starting here. 0. Good. Very good. All right, let's do the first one together, then I'll let you do 11 and 12 on your own. When I plug in 0 for sine theta, I'll get 3 plus 2 times 0, which should give me what? 3. So I will go 3 towards this number that I plugged in. When I plug in 1, I'll get 3 plus 2 times 1. That's going to give me what? So I'll go 5 towards that number I just plugged in. When I plug in 0, it's still going to give me the same value as over here. Still going to be what? 3. So I'll go 3 towards 0. And then this last one, negative 1, when I plug it in, I'll get 3 plus negative 2, which is what? 1. So it's going to be 1 towards that number I just plugged in, which is right here. So it's still a dimple, but it's a little, the center point is out further than the last ones. Kinda. Without the actual points. Do y'all have any questions about this one? Go ahead and do 11 and 12 on your own. Bless you.
I think it looks more like a frog.
Alright, let's go over these quickly. Miles cosine values, this is going to be what right here?
1.
Good? Keep going.
0.
Go ahead.
-1. 0.
Very good. Alright, Victor, when you plug in 1, you should get what?
7.
Very good, which is here. Katie, when you plug in 0, you should get good, which is here. Brandon, when you plug in -1, you should get what?
3.
Very good. And Kelsey, when you plug in 0, you should get what? Very good, which is here. Y'all have any questions about that? Here you go. Hold on. Jalen. There you go. All right, this next one, cosine values are what, Derry?
0.
Go ahead. Oh, wait, this is 0?
Oh, I thought we started at the top. My bad. 1. 0. -1.
Good. All right, Colby, when you plug in 1 for this one, you should get what value? Very good. Amber, when you plug in 0, you should get what value?
4.
Very good. Megan, when you plug in -1, you should get what? Very good. So that should be right here. And then Camden, when you plug in 0, you should get what? Very good. Any questions about these type of limicons? All right. The next one we're going to talk about is lemniscates. Lemniscates. And that's when there's an R squared involved. So that's how you can tell it's a lemniscate. The shape that it's going to make, some people say a bow tie. I know what a bow tie looks like. I say it looks like a figure 8 or an infinity sign. Y'all know what those look like? It's like an 8 sideways. And they're a little bit different. Cosine is still going to be symmetrical across which axis? Cosine is what? X-axis. Good. So it's going to be symmetrical across the x-axis. But sine is different. It's not symmetrical across the y-axis. It's going to be symmetrical across 45 degrees, which is in between what 2 degrees?
90 and 0.
Yeah, the smack dab middle. So that's what it's going to be symmetrical across. And a few other things. This is going to tell us how far away from the center our bow tie is going. We just have to take the square root of it since it's R squared. So I'll let this be A. And the square root of 9 is going to be what? 3. That tells us how far from the center it goes. So distance from center. And it's symmetrical, so it's going to be on both sides of your center. And your center is always going to be at 0, 0. So center at 0, 0. So that's the first point we can go ahead and graph, 0, 0. Our other 2 points are going to be 3 away on which axis? X-axis. So you'll go 3 this way, 3 that way, and then draw your bow tie. That's a lemniscate. That's it. All right, this next one, what is our distance away from the center on this one? How'd you get 2? Good. Square root of 4. Where's the center going to be at? Good. Center's going to be at 0, 0. So we are going to go 2 away from our center on both sides, but it's going to be on what line? 45 degrees, which is this one right here. So you're going to go 2 towards 45 degrees and 2 away from 45 degrees, which will be right here. Did I drop? I actually put one more extra, sorry. And then you just draw your bow tie. Any questions about that? Go ahead and try number 20 on your own. I know 8's not a perfect square. You can just do it in your calculator and round to the nearest tenth. Let me know if you need some help.
So all signs is
on the left.
Alright, let's go over this one. Alyssa, what axis is this going to be symmetrical to? Or excuse me, what angle? Good? How far away from the center is it going to be, Miles?
2.8.
Good. Does everybody know where I got 2.8 from? You just take the square root of 8. So the center is always going to be at 0, so you'll go 2.8 towards 45 degrees. 1, 2, which would be here. Same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then just draw your bow tie. Any questions about lemniscate? Pretty easy. Alright, the last thing you're going to do is look at these, and I want you to tell me if it is, you can mark out this one, a circle, a lemnicon, or a lemniscate. If it's a circle, I just want the radius. I don't want you to name the center. I just want the radius. And if it's a lemnicon, name the type. Just tell me if it's a dimple or an inner loop. Okay? So like for this first one, we know this is what type of polar graph? A circle, because nothing's being added or subtracted to it. It's a circle. The radius is what? 2, because you take the square root of 4. Very good. This next one, we know it's going to be what type? A lemnicon. This one is A, this one is B. So A is greater than B, so that means this is what type? Look back in your notes. If A is greater than B, this is what? A dimple. Yes, that's correct. You just put dimple for both of them. The only time it's not a dimple, it's an inner loop, is when what? When A is less than B. Very good. Alright, go ahead and do these on your own. And then while you're doing that, I'm going to pass out your homework sheet. I don't think you'll have any tonight. You'll have some tomorrow, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. Oh, never mind. I'll give it to you tomorrow. It's in my classroom. You can wait 3 minutes. Once you finish these, just let me know and you can pack up after I check them.